Warning: the following podcast may contain coarse language and is intended for Philadelphia Eagles fans. Fuck the Cowboys.
Hello and welcome to the third episode of the Birds Locker podcast. I am your host, Chris Baxter. This is a pre-game episode for the Week 16 Eagles vs Giants game at Lincoln Financial Field. In some news, Tristan McCollum and Brandon Smith have been elevated from the practice squad and are in line to play this weekend. McCollum played 20 special team snaps against Washington in Week 4 but has not been seen since. Smith hasn't played this season and was with the Panthers last year. It's likely due to the Cunningham out and Moreau questionable, but more on them later. There was also a Jeff McClain article this week that I wanted to address. They're saying that there was some internal concern with Jalen Hurts being too isolated and not opening up to the team. Personally, I think Jeff McClain is a parasite and he thrives on bad news for the Eagles, and I think that this is nothing to pay attention to, but I'd like to see if this is a motivating factor for the team to play really well this week, and especially Jalen. Now, into the game preview. We're on the back of 3 disappointing weeks in a row with 3 losses to 3 teams who are likely to be in the playoffs, which is not ideal coming towards the business end of the season. That heartbreaking loss to the Seahawks with that catch to Jackson Smith and Jigba right at the end proving to be the difference. But Dallas's loss to the Dolphins means that we can still go to number 1 in the NFC East with a win this week. We happen to face the 5-9 Giants at home at Lincoln Financial Field on Monday afternoon football. Now, last week I didn't really want to go too much through the numbers, but this week I'm going to go through the numbers because I believe they are very important to showcase where we have been at and how we have gone wrong in the last few weeks. Looking at things by the numbers, in the 10-1 start, as you can see, we averaged over 28 points per game, 22 against, 231 passing yards, 255 passing yards against, 133 rushing yards, 85 rushing yards against, 1.6 passing touchdowns a game, 1.5 rushing touchdowns a game, 1.45 turnovers a game, 1.27 turnovers generated for a differential of -2. Now, while the turnover differential isn't great there, same as the passing yards against, all the other numbers are quite good, especially the points per game and points per game against. Very good quality winning football. Now, in the last 3 weeks where we have generated 3 losses, the points per game has gone down by nearly 12 points per game down to just over 16. Points per game against has gone from just over 22 to over 31. Passing yards have gone down by 15 to 216. Passing yards against have gone as the only stat that has slightly improved to 254. Rushing yards have gone down by more than 23 yards a game. Rushing yards against has gone up by more than 42 yards a game. Passing touchdowns have decreased by 1.3. Rushing touchdowns have gone down by 0.5. Turnovers from the offense a game have gone up slightly by 0.2. Turnovers generated have plummeted by more than 0.9, giving us a differential over this time period of -4. Put it simply, we have been putrid across the board, apart from passing yards against has marginally improved, but wasn't great in the first place. The numbers look really bad. And even though overall we don't look as bad, it's still a very, very poor 3 weeks. And it begs the question, is the 10-1 start what we're capable of and what our best football is and where we are really at? Or is the 0-3 where we've gotten to now and we are just not going to dig our way out? We have to really prove that this week. Because overall, even though the last 3 weeks have been poor, at the 10-4 start, we are still 7th overall for points per game, 25th overall for points against, 16th for passing yards, 27th overall for passing yards against, 9th overall for rushing yards, 7th overall for rushing yards against, 17th overall for passing touchdowns, 5th overall for rushing touchdowns, 22nd overall for turnovers, 26th overall for turnovers generated, and the turnover differential, we are 26th overall in the league. Now those numbers, some of them are bad. Obviously points per game against, passing yards against, and the turnover differential, but there are some good numbers still there. It's time to determine where this team is at. Are we that team that can score and can manage the score against, or are we the team that's going to struggle this back end of the year? We have to find out. And for the uniform junkies for this week, we will be in all black uniforms, and I'm all here for it as long as we are bringing back the nastiness that this team needs. Now, let's get into an opponent preview. The Giants are 5-9 on the season. They would be very disappointed with their season after last year showing some big leaps going forward, especially winning some clutch games. The Daniel Jones injury didn't help. Even though they weren't traveling that well beforehand, it looks like they have definitely regressed across the board. I feel like they threw in the towel once they traded Leonard Williams. It showed that they really weren't that interested in competing for this year. They were more looking to build towards next year and the following. But nevertheless, they're still a better team at home. 3-3 at home versus 2-6 on the road. Showcases that, yeah, they're about 50-50. There's a 50-50 chance we win when we're there. They are not good on the road, though. This is our time to take advantage of that. Ranking. They rank offensively pretty badly. They are 31st for total yards, 32nd in passing yards, 14th in completion percentage, 16th in rushing yards, 31st in yards per play, 31st in points per game, 25th lowest for interceptions, 32nd for sacks allowed by 15. They are worst in the league by far, 8th highest in the league for fumbles, and 9th best in the league for turnovers. It tells me offensively, they suck, plain and simple. Their best asset is the run, and they're only mid-pack at it. They're a horrible passing offense. They're horrible at pass protection. They do not put up competitive scores. They're very careful, almost too safe. They don't want to turn the ball over much. They still do fumble the ball quite a lot, but they don't turn the ball over a lot through the air, and they have a good completion percentage, but they really just kind of take care of the football and throw really basic stuff. It's honestly the kind of offense that this defense should feast on. Now let's take a look at their defense. Defensively, they rank 22nd for yards against, 19th for passing yards against, 27th for rushing yards against, 24th for points against, 12th for turnovers generated, and 31st in the league in sacks. Now, I think these numbers are not very indicative of their performance and capabilities, as they're on the field quite a lot, and it does skew the totals a little bit. They're good at turnovers though, they're just bad at getting to the quarterback, and if they got to the quarterback more, I think this defense would be a lot better. Overall, I believe they're a bad football team that you should take advantage of. They're lucky to not be last in the division, really. But I do think this is a defense that you don't want to toy with, because they do have some players who can make plays, and it's their one asset that they could probably really get on top of a football game if they're in the football game. Now for our keys to the game. Offensively, they're okay against the pass, but they can be run on quite easily. For God's sake, can we please lean on the run this week? I promise you it will work. I'm looking at you, Brian Johnson. This team can also generate turnovers, mostly through the air and not really via quarterback pressure. They don't get a lot of sacks. We have to be smart here. No hero shit. Looking at you, Jalen. Be patient. Look after the football. Check the ball down. We can move the ball on this defense and get them tired, and that will be a huge key to the game. Personally, I think we can score big here. Despite the recent struggles, I reckon 30 plus should be the aim. Even though it might seem a bit of a stretch based on our last 3 weeks, this is not the same caliber of team that we're playing this week. Defensively, they can run it okay. If you're going to say their offense has a strength, that would be it. Don't let them get it going. If they don't get their run going, they have to look to their passing game. They've got a rookie quarterback, and they also struggle to pass the ball. They have the worst passing yardage in the league. They're also the worst at giving up sacks. It's time for this D-line to feast and give Tommy DeVito a little gift or 6 this week. And I'll say it again. Every week, get off the field on 3rd down. It's still the worst conversion in the league with this defense. If they do not fix this, it will be a very short season come the playoffs because it is a key to getting anywhere in the postseason. Offensively, the Giants average 13.5 points per game. If we keep them anywhere near that total, I can't see any reason why we wouldn't win this game and win this game comfortably. We should be all over them. There is no reason to give this offense anything. Now, taking a look at the injury report for this week, which I have updated during the week through the reels. The Eagles, Darius Slay is out with his knee. Landon Dickerson is out with his thumb. Zach Cunningham is out with his knee. Avonte Maddox has not come up through his pectoral injury, which I believe they're just being cautious as they've opened up his window. Should be back next week. Nicholas Moreau is still questionable with his abdomen. But in good news, Devontae Smith and Cam Jurgens are both in. So obviously we have some key outs, and Moreau being questionable. We're still pretty thin at linebacker. But we do have some key ins with Devontae Smith not missing the game and also Cam Jurgens coming back in to help shore up that offensive line. As for the Giants, Evan Neal and Raheem Nunez-Roche are both out. Evan Neal being out is quite a big one because their O-line struggles as it is, and they will be relying on backups there. They have 4 players at questionable: Lawrence Kager, Ashawn Robinson, Gary Brightwell, and the big one, Dexter Lawrence, who has not practiced all week. That'd be a huge loss for them as he is a big part of their defense. Now, taking a look at the player watch for this week. These are the players that I think are going to be very important for the Eagles. Jalen Hurts. There's a bit of talk this week about his comments about the commitment of the team and his isolated nature, which came up through the Jeff McClain article. Honestly, he's had poor play and very bad decisions in the last 3 weeks. This team needs the better version of Jalen going forward. The one who makes smart decisions, the one who makes the big plays, who can, carry the team on his back. He needs to be more balanced. The run and the pass is what gets him, what makes him a problem for other teams. We need to get back to that. It's another big week for DeAndre Swift. This team needs to lean on the run. He needs to be a reason for that. Last week he was okay, 4.1 yards a carry, but we need to up that production because really he had 20 touches for 75 yards, which is just not enough. He needs to get downhill. We keep seeing with him, he's looking to get these big chunk plays. He's looking to break it open and get loose. Not everything is going to work that way. Sometimes just burying your head and getting 4 to 5 yards is better than dancing around and hoping that you might get a 60-yard crease somewhere. It's another big week for this entire receiving corps. I'm just going to say it. Does anybody in this receiving corps want to step up to the plate? We have too much talent in this receiving corps, from the tight ends, the wide receivers, and even the backs, to be this bad. We need cohesion across the board. The quarterbacks, the wide receivers, the tight ends, the running backs, and the offensive coordinator have got to get on the same page, because right now they just look like a jumbled mess where you're just rolling the dice every play. It might be a big play, it might be a turnover, but it's likely not going to be anything good. We need to get back to that good football that we know we're capable of, especially from the receiving core. It's a big week for Hassan Reddick. This guy loves to get sacks. He's been racking them up over the years. He consistently is underrated in the league. And this team loves to give sacks up. Enough said. Lift and carry this D-line. Let's get back to what this defense does best, and I think it starts with him. This is a big week for James Bradbury. The fall off from him has been drastic, and he has been awful in the last few weeks in particular. On the final drive, look, he wasn't the only factor into why we lost, but on the final drive, he gave up every catch. He was a big reason why we lost that game. There's some talk of him potentially being benched as well. If that's not a motivating factor, I don't know what is. He's got to lift this week. It's a big week for Shaq Leonard. I know some of these names are similar coming week to week, but we now have no Cunningham, and I reckon likely no Moreau either, or at least he'll be on severely limited snaps. We need him to step up and show why we signed him, and bring that all-pro caliber play. It's a big week for Sydney Brown for me. I loved his game last week. I thought he was fantastic, and he took some steps in the right direction. I want to see if he can get some more snaps, and really keen to see if he can back that solid performance up, and really pair with Blankenship and make some big plays. And now, I know that I said that this is a player-only watch, but I've got to put Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson in here. I didn't put Matt Patricia in here because I thought he called a good game last week. Aside from putting Josh Jobe on the field to start one of the drives which led to a 20-yard pass interference on DK Metcalf, I thought he called a pretty good game, put us into a situation to win, and the offense simply couldn't get the job done. Now, Sirianni defended Brian Johnson this week, so he's got to wear the heat if this doesn't work again. Because Brian Johnson, in my opinion, has been pitiful. Another sub-20 point game. I know that he is in control of everything. Some of the turnovers, he wouldn't be planning for that, but he's not putting these players into situations to succeed. And it's our third week in a row with less than 20 points, and funnily enough, all 4 games we've lost this year have been when we have scored under 20 points. We need a drastic shift because honestly, this offense is too talented to be this shit. It's that simple. This offense has been shit, and they need to be far better if we're going to do anything. Now looking at the key players for the Giants. Tommy DeVito. He's entertaining. He's got his little hand gesture. And he's showing glimpses of nice football from time to time. He will need to be good for them to win, as their passing game has been their real weak point, and if he gets up and going, it'll be a big factor in whether they can win the football game. It's a big week for Saquon Barkley. He needs to take advantage of a beat-up, underperforming run defense, because their run game is the catalyst for their offense. And he has a previous good record of games against Philly. Clearly likes playing us, clearly likes making plays against us. Definitely one to watch. They need any receiver to step up, because they are struggling in the passing game. And it's because nobody is making plays. I'd really look for Darren Waller this week, who could expose a weak linebacking core and secondary group. Bobby Okereke. He's their leader in tackles. He's top 3 in their team for tackles for loss, top 2 in their team for passes defended. Put it simply, he's making plays everywhere across the field. He'd be big in stopping our tight ends, catching over the middle, and also limiting our run. He's the leader of this defense at the moment, and look for him to make plays. It's a big week for Kayvon Thibodeau. Now, I'm a huge Oregon Ducks fan. I know what this guy's capable of. He is a game changer. He's leading the team in sacks with 11.5, and to be honest, they need a big game out of him. Because if they're going to make this game a contest, they need some big plays, and he is one that is more than capable of it. Another big one for them is their entire offensive line. They're without Evan Neal this week. They are the worst in the league for giving up sacks. They need to play smart and sensible and play hard and stop getting pushed around. That's going to be massive as to whether they can stop this D-line or not. And if they're able to contain this D-line, I wouldn't be shocked if this game is a lot closer than it should be. Now for my prediction for this week. The weather looks great and it's a must-win game for the Birds. The numbers show that we are far better than them, and I honestly think we win comfortably at home. I'm predicting a score of about 34-14. Alright, that's our third episode done and dusted. All our socials have our links on there. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, X or Twitter as you might call it, Instagram, Facebook and TikTok. Like, comment, subscribe. Always happy for feedback and interaction. Alright, let's get a break. Go Birds on 3. 1, 2, 3, go Birds!